Hey, good afternoon. This is Chuck Martin. Good morning, everyone. To media services, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. It was also quiet. I guess everybody's muted. I didn't know we were ready to go. I know we've reached 1 o'clock. So we'll go ahead and kick it off if you can clear us up there. And I guess we are open then.
Yes, sir.
Okay, awesome. Representative Bonner, I know you're here. I'm trying to set my view so I can see everyone. Just give me I guess a moment here to, okay. Representative Bonner, are you here?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'm here.
Okay, awesome. I know we have a number of our members here online. Looking around, we're continuing to move toward a quorum. I'll go ahead without objection and start the meeting. We are going to have a hearing only on HB1. As I understand, Representative, this is a measure in here. Let me get online here and prove it's me. Yes, as I understand, this is a measure that you brought us last year. This is the same bill. The LC number is changed, and you can explain that to folks, but basically that's just a change on the effective date. You had to move that from 2021 to 2022. I've looked myself and compared. So we're going to let you go ahead with a hearing only and present that legislation. I know we have parties from the University System of Georgia that'll help us if we have questions. I want to welcome, if I can, as we start and kick off our first meeting, Courtney George with us. She is from House Budget and Research, and Austin Retino is with us also, that is working on our committee to be supportive of us during this process. Thank Media Services for helping us put together, and I'm going to lean on Media Services when we get to the point. I know we have some speakers, and I am hoping that Media Services has their names and a batting order, if you will, for the speakers on that. If not, I'm giving you guys a heads up now while Representative Bonner is presenting the bill to get with Kayla or Courtney or Austin and get us a lineup for the speakers that wish to do that on the bill. So with that, we are here today to have a hearing again to speak. This is a bill that was brought out of committee last year, did not make it out of rules due to time considerations. So with that, Representative Bonner, you have the floor for the bill presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that, and I appreciate you and the committee taking time to hear this bill. As you mentioned, Mr. Chairman, this measure did pass out of committee last session, did not make it out of rules, and given the fact that we needed to change the effective date of the legislation, requires us to come back to the committee potentially for a vote. So I'm working off of LC 490749S. And so, Mr. Chairman, what I'll do, and I will certainly be brief and open it up for any questions that the members of the committee have, but as I had presented last time, House Bill 1 will protect and clarify the First Amendment rights our students should enjoy on our public colleges and universities. The bill would accomplish this in two ways. First, by protecting what students may say, and then second, by protecting where they can exercise free speech. It protects what students can say by ensuring that our public universities and colleges do not ban expressive activity while on campus, so long as their conduct is lawful and does not disrupt the functioning of that college or university. It protects where they can speak by banning the so-called free speech zones, or areas of campus that are designated for free speech, rather than all of the commonly accessible areas of campus. It also goes on to clarify that universities can impose published reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions on speech that are content neutral and not directed toward any specific group. Now, we spent a great deal of time in previous iterations of this working with Chairman Martin as well as USG Council, and trying to find some ways to to get this agreeable to all parties. So we did a great bill of work. We scaled this down significantly from what it was. We removed all the provisions as it related to rights of assembly. We removed the provisions that gave cause of relief and things like that. So what we've done, and I'll just again walk through it very briefly, starting in lines 26 going down through 65. It just defines those relevant terms with really the heart of the bill starting on line 66. Goes on to establish that unrestricted outdoor areas of campuses are public forums and provide for the reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions. Then goes on to provide the protections on what students may say while still allowing the colleges and universities to restrict unlawful activity that materially and substantially disrupts the functioning of the public institution. And that materially and substantially is a term that we do define. And that was one of those terms that we worked closely with the chairman on, adjusting that definition substantially from what was first presented. So the bill only applies to our public universities and to our technical college system. So you'll see that in section 4, it's essentially a duplicate of the first part of the bill, which it just covers the technical colleges. So during the course of conversation on this bill, it often comes the question, well, is this something that we need, and why do we need it? Well, it is, protecting our constitutional rights is something that we as elected officials, and I know all of my colleagues on the committee share a great interest in doing. This bill does that. What we've seen over time is this being displayed through various lawsuits that have been filed against our universities and colleges. One of the more recent ones that I'd like to highlight is the case of, pardon the pronunciation, but the defendant was Chike Uzabunam, and the case was Chike Uzabunam versus Georgia Gwinnett College. This case went all the way to the Supreme Court. The student did get a permit on the campus to share his faith with others in a designated free speech zone. But 20 minutes after the student began speaking on the day that was allowed by his permit, campus police officer told him to stop, saying that people had complained about his speech and that he was violating the policy that prohibits any speech that disturbs the peace and or comfort of persons, unquote. The officer threatened the student with disciplinary action if he continued. Unfortunately, this led to the student filing a lawsuit to change the policies. The college originally defended its unconstitutional policies, claiming that the discussion of his religion was, quote, arguably rose to the level of fighting words, but it eventually abandoned this defense, realizing they would lose and claimed they should be able to avoid a penalty for violating the student's free speech rights. The Supreme Court ruled in his favor and was focused on the question of mootness, whether the college can still be held accountable for past violations of students' rights. Its holding means that the student can get relief for Georgia Gwinnett College violations of his rights. So what this tells us is that this is an issue not only for those that are currently on our campuses, but it could be an issue, and in this case was, even after the student was no longer a part of that campus community. So I highlight that as one example of a case that went all the way to the Supreme Court. As you can imagine, all the time, effort, and money that was consumed in that effort when all of this could have been avoided. And the goal is to avoid this type of litigation moving forward by adopting this legislation. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I will certainly open it up for any questions or comments from the committee or others at your pleasure.
Thank you, Representative Bonner. I will allow the committee some questions, and we do have some speakers that want to speak, and remind everybody that this is the materially the same piece of legislation that was before us in meetings last year. I believe we passed, Representative Bonner, you can correct me, but I believe this was passed March 5th.
That's correct, Mr.
earlier this
Chairman.
week. So it was something, but this is the same bill with the effective date change. Are there any questions? If you'd help us out here with media services, since we're doing this remotely, and I think I believe we allow everybody to unmute their own self, but if you would do your virtual version of the hand raise, and so we can keep an order to it. And I'll ask media services to help me unmute and allow these questions. Questions for the gentleman. Questions? Okay, I see Dr. Clark.
Mr.
Yeah,
Yes.
yes, you can go. And I see you found a way to unmute. So please go ahead.
Yes, I'm pretty familiar with Zoom after 2 years of doing this, unfortunately. So yes, my question for the bill sponsor is, how would this bill and this language affect something such as an armed protest, or a group of armed individuals coming onto a campus? And would people brandishing guns or open carrying large, long guns, would that fall under the definition of materially and substantially disruptive?
Hey, thank you for the question, Representative Clark. This does not protect any unlawful activity. So any type of unlawful activity would be prohibited. So if any of those things related to firearms on campus or anything like that were illegal, then this would not protect that.
Thank you.
Question? I'm sorry, Dr. Clark, I think I talked over your answer. Does that answer your question just before we move on?
Yes, I don't have any follow-up.
Okay, thank you very much. Other questions for the gentleman? I'm doing my best to scan. Other questions? If not, I know we have some speakers, and again, I'm going to lean to media services. If I'm going to let me ask media services verbally here, do you have a list of the speakers?
I do not have a list in front of me of the speakers.
Okay. Then we're going to have to. Then what I'm going to do here is just ask the speakers to, if they're familiar with this, to use the virtual version of raising your hand, and I'll call on you in the order that I see it. And ask if you could, since we have had a public hearing on this, and following the committee's ongoing processes, we wouldn't necessarily take public comment on a bill that has not been changed. But given we're in a fresh year, and we're doing this virtually, I'm willing to do that. But if I could ask everyone to be cognizant of the time frames, and get your points made, and move on. The first person I'm going to unmute is unmute. Yes. Alex, do you have that? There you go.
Yes, thank you for making public comment available. Good afternoon, y'all. My name is Alex. I'm a Georgia college student and a resident and a voter. I go to school at Georgia Tech, and this past year we've seen a number of extremist groups present on campus. One of these is Black Hammer. Black Hammer identifies itself as a communist, anti-white, radical organization, and has been engaging with and following around Georgia's students right outside our library. They recently called Anne Frank, a child killed by Nazi genocide, a parasite, a demon, and a colonizer. Recently, they formed some sort of coalition with the white nationalist group known as the Proud Boys. They're an armed, anti-Muslim, men-only, anti-Semitic extremist group, lots of signifiers there, and they are best known for their involvement in the deadly Charlottesville 2017 Unite the Right rally. Right now on campus, when my Muslim and Jewish friends walk on campus past these extremists to go in class, we try to move in groups to keep them safe. They get shouted at, told to go to hell, told they're going to go to hell. There's threats. There have been instances of doxing people's private information. And keep in mind, these are college students who pay tuition, often pay taxes, and this is not okay. Already, folks face violence and harassment on our campuses across the state and nation from these extremist groups on campus. For kids like me and my friends, HB1 would make this worse. It would infringe on our First Amendment rights to counter protests against groups like Black Hammer. And additionally, HB1 would force universities to defend and pay for security costs associated with having armed radical people on our campus. As someone who pays both taxes and tuitions in the state of Georgia, I know that Georgians like myself, my parents, and my friends, we don't want our tax dollars going towards security for Nazi speakers on campus while preventing us from counter-protesting. When hate groups on my campus and others nationwide interrupt class to shout down professors they disagree with, and when students of color are targets just for walking between their dorm and their class, that's not free speech, it's protected hate speech. HP1 protects and expands hate speech on campus in ways that will cost taxpayers and endanger marginalized students like my friends. Forcing taxpayers and schools to foot the bill for extremists on campus is not an advancement of free speech. And I urge you to oppose this bill. Thank you.
Alex, thank you very much. And I would like to follow up with you if I can, directly. Usually we'll ask speakers if they would take questions. Given that we're all virtual and spread out today, I'm not going to ask you to do that, but I would personally ask you if I could follow up with you, because as higher education chair and as somebody that works with the acting chancellor in the system office every day, with or without HB1, what you described to me is inappropriate, and I believe illegal, not only illegal, but probably falls outside the rules of our university system. So I'd like to follow up with you on specifically what's going on there, and follow up with our university system, irregardless of the movement of this bill. Secondly, I mean, you also mentioned you would protect, armed protest. I think the gentleman was quite clear. It is illegal now in Georgia to carry firearms on campus, to have firearms in places on campus. And if that, in fact, is going on, we need to address that. So if you wouldn't mind, I don't have your contact information, but I'm easy to find online. I'd ask you if you're inclined to shoot me an email and let me know how we could get together if you'd be inclined to speaking further. Would you, if you choose, I want to ask you now, but if you choose to,
sure.
I'll get an email from
I
you,
live
okay?
in your district, so I would.
Oh, awesome. Well, there you go. Well, then we have a lot to talk about then. So I'll look forward to getting something from you. Okay.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, if I could just make one comment about Ms. Ames' presentation. And first of all, House Bill 1 protects students and student groups. So I can't imagine that any of the groups that she mentioned are recognized student groups on any of our college campuses. If they are, and that kind of activity has taken place, I think we've got a much bigger issue. But House Bill 1 does not address the issues that Ms. Ames brought up. So just wanted to make that comment. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Ms. Ames. And I'm going to go to the next one. I'll probably not get this name right. Is it Javiera? How did I do?
Javaria, thank you.
Javaria, I apologize. It's but please, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity for public comment. I want to echo Alex's comments. And I'm sorry, my name is Javaria Jamil. I am the Legal and Policy Director at CARE Georgia. We're part of the nation's largest Muslim civil rights organization working to defend the rights of Georgia's Muslim community. And I'm here today to express our opposition to House Bill 1. The bill purports to be something that protects free speech. But in fact, if it were to pass, it would only serve to expand and protect hate speech on Georgia campuses. Like Alex said, further endangering Muslim, Jewish, and other students from vulnerable communities who are already targeted because of their actual or perceived faith. So for example, in 2019, hate groups targeted Jewish students at least 2 Georgia campuses, UGA and Georgia State, when they drew swastikas on message boards. We also think that HB1 allows for outside agitators to come onto college campuses. And these agitators can be people who are, brought in by student groups that already exist on campuses. And these agitators, it allows for these agitators to provoke students, encourage chaos, and then to sue the school at taxpayers' expense if the school officials take any action to protect their students. So this bill is in fact a green light for radical hate groups to enter the university grounds, all in the name of free speech. So we're asking you to consider the real danger students from vulnerable communities like the Muslim community will be placed in if HB1 were to pass, and to reconsider your support of this bill. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and I would offer you the same before. It's just reach if you'd like to have a direct contact with me. Please reach out to me, and we'll do that.
Thank you, Chairman Martin.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Going further, Anika, did I do?
Yeah, perfect.
Perfect. Awesome. You have the floor. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, well, my name is Anika Munjal, and I am a second year at Georgia Tech. And I did also want to echo what Alex and Jamila said and ask you to reconsider your support of this bill, because personally, in my experience as a daughter of immigrants, woman of color, and a non-Christian in a predominantly white state, we all, people of those communities and those being my communities, already do deal with speech that does attack our very being and our very placement in this country. I have received sexist and racist comments already from students during student events, and allowing for this bill to pass would make that worse, because it would make that behavior seem as if it was accepted by universities, and it would make our community unsafe in a place that we should be able to peacefully study and peacefully go to school and coexist within our community and with other communities. I believe that allowing this bill to pass would severely impact my ability and our community's ability to even just exist in a place. And Atlanta alone already, there's a lot of strife between communities. And I think that our universities give us a safe space from that, which is already impeded by small organizations and people that think it's okay to comment on our gender, race, religion, nationality of our parents. And again, allowing for this bill to pass would make it seem like that is acceptable and okay for anybody to do at any time. So again, I implore you to not support this bill, essentially. Thank you.
Nika, thank you for your comments. I'm going and I won't. I'll say it one more time, and then I'll just say it's offered to everybody that speaks today. I would really love the opportunity to sit down, with you all individually or together to go over the words on paper in the bill, to see exactly what points, or ask you to pick a point, pick the point where you feel like this would put you in a worse situation. I'm not going to debate with you today. I don't want to chill the fact of people coming to talk to our community with a debate, but I always believe communication is good. So I would offer to speak to each and every one of the speakers directly, and ask if you could to point out sections and specific language on paper that you believe would put you in that situation, and toward an end. So thank you very much. Isabel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Isabel. I apologize that I have a new computer and my camera does not work somehow. So I apologize for that, but I serve as the Georgia Policy Director for the SPLC Action Fund. Our sister organization is the Southern Poverty Law Center, which tracks and monitors a lot of the extremist groups that we have seen on campus, unfortunately. I think just want to remind the committee that there's been a lot of concern about radicalization of young people, censoring certain speech for being obscene, sharing certain information with young people. And I think it's interesting, right, to see those kind of bills in other committees back to back with a bill like this, because I think, I'm glad to see the changes that the author of the bill mentioned. I think those are good. It's going in a better direction. But I do think there's some ongoing concerns for us. I don't think there's any confusion about our First Amendment rights. We don't have to sort of restate it in any new bill for Georgia. And I think that there's plenty in Georgia's code already to address illegal activity and threats of violence in Georgia. And so this bill sort of seems a little bit redundant at the point that it is now. And I think that to Javaria and some of the students' points, like student groups on campus have invited extremists to speak, to provoke outrage, to basically do photo ops that are increasingly costly to universities. And so we have some examples. I'm happy to share them with you, but just really, really quickly, Richard Spencer, one of the self-proclaimed neo-Nazis in the country, has been doing college appearances. Texas A&M ended up spending $300,000 for his visit. 2 people ended up being arrested. Milo Yiannopoulos, another far-right activist, has been in different colleges, I think $500,000 at University of Florida. Governor Rick Scott ended up having to call a state of emergency for one of these visits. And this is all for like, a 2-hour speech for people trying to make a sort of point about these bastions of multiculturalism, which are universities. And it can be very frustrating and it can be very disruptive. And so while I understand the author's aim here, which is to sort of reinforce the rights of students and student groups, I think there are some unintended consequences that I would just like for you all to consider. And I'm happy to send you, Chairman, for you to share some of these other examples that we've got.
Thank you. And please do that. And to be clear to the committee members, anything that I get from any of these folks that are speaking to us, I will share with the committee unless specifically asked not to by the purveyor of the information to me. So I would, tell the folks that are speaking to us, if you communicate with the committee, if you don't want it, if you do not wish it to be shared with the committee, let me know. Otherwise, we want to let all the members of the committee, continue to be part of the conversation. Thank you very much, Isabel, and I look forward to hearing from you as well. Julian.
All right, fellow representatives, I want to echo first the thanks for allowing public comment. This is, as you all know, a very impactful or potentially impactful piece of legislation for Georgia students. My name is Julian Fortuna. I am a lifelong Georgia resident, a voter, and a student at the University of Georgia. And I'm here to voice my opposition to this bill. So I'll keep my comments brief because at the end of the day, the situation is pretty simple, right? Politicians have no place in campus affairs, university policy, and admire my classmates' education, least of all when it means playing politics with the safety of my friends and students across Georgia. So how can Georgians know that HB 1 is political? Because the right to free speech already exists on campuses across our state. As a student, I see firsthand every day the honest exchange of ideas between students of all backgrounds and ideologies. And more than that, we're encouraged to have those types of exchanges. They're encouraged by the university. And as it says in the bill itself, protected expressive activities under this part consist of speech and other conduct protected by the First Amendment of the United States. So if these protections already exist and the speech rights of students it claims to protect are already not only protected and encouraged, what will this bill accomplish really? Even as a student, it's unfortunately rather clear to see that this bill will use the university classrooms as a way to make a political statement, and more to the point, and of much more concern to me, tie the hands of campus administration to respond to hate speech and endanger the safety of my friends. And even beyond that, actually limit student speech by outlining more limitations on how students can counter protest and respond to radical hate on campuses. As we've already heard from speakers today, student-sponsored, and I want to emphasize that again, student-sponsored hate groups and the speakers that they invite, another group explicitly protected under this bill, as well as radical organizations' presences on Georgia campuses are on the rise. The restrictions this bill levies on students' abilities to counter protest against hate and upon the administration's abilities to protect students are actually a net negative for us at the university and for our speech. In the face of that, expanding the number of areas on campus that are, quote, free speech zones is a net negative for Georgia students. As such, I, as a Georgia student, on behalf of me, my friends, my community, all the folks who weren't able to make it today to this virtual hearing, I implore you all to not pass this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, if I could, Julian, just if you would outline the specific words in the bill that you think would put you at risk, that would be helpful. And I'll pass that along to the committee at all. Moving on. Yes.
Would you like me? I can actually outline the clause that protects that one of which I found rather problematic right now, if you'd like me to represent.
Sure. I'll give you a second to do that.
Awesome. Thank you. So let me see.
Do you want to take a second? Let me
Yeah.
just an instant. I'll come back to you. Take a minute to look at that so you don't feel the pressure. And I'm going to move on to, is it Vasu? And you have the floor.
That's right. Fantastic. Thank
Yes,
you,
sir.
and good afternoon, Chair Martin, esteemed members of the committee. My name is Vasu Abhiraman. I'm the Senior Policy Counsel at the ACLU of Georgia, also a graduate of multiple Georgia public colleges that will be covered by this bill. We have, of course, been tracking and testifying as a free speech organization on various versions of this legislation over the years, and we do recognize and appreciate that meaningful improvements have been made in this bill. We do remain concerned with the various provisions within HB1 that could hinder First Amendment rights on campuses. Based on the current version, the committee substitute, I believe the lines we're most concerned about are 34 through 38, 40 through 42, and 156 through 157.
Let me ask you to slow down and repeat those lines for me again, if you would.
Sure. These would be lines 34 through 38, 40 through 42, and 156 through 157.
Thank you.
First, I want to bring our attention to existing law, OCGA 20-3-48, which specifies goals of fostering the transmission and dissemination of knowledge by means of, among others, debate of different ideological positions, and also establishing that our institutions of higher learning do not exist to shield students from speech protected by the First Amendment. The sections of HB1 that we are concerned about may run counter to those stated objectives by chilling the rights of demonstrators and counter-demonstrators on campuses. For example, the bill makes a few attempts to describe what behavior is prohibited. In lines 40 through 41, an individual may not create loud or sustained noise or vocalization. And in lines 156 through 157, it excludes minor, brief, or fleeting nonviolent disruptions, those that are isolated or short in duration. Neither of these provisions truly creates meaningful guidelines that provide individuals with the ability to determine what conduct would be prohibited by this bill. The Supreme Court in the city of Chicago versus Morales held that a law can be vague because it does not give an individual notice of conduct that is prohibited, or because it allows for arbitrary and discriminatory enforcement. As previously mentioned, the provisions contained in HB1 that do not provide adequate notice of what conduct is prohibited due to the wide range of conduct falling between the aforementioned isolated and minor, and then the loud and sustained noise. The bill also introduces multiple elements of subjectivity, which lack the specificity required to merit an infringement on First Amendment rights. What one student may deem a minor disruption could be a major source of distress to a different student. This would allow the same conduct to be penalized differently based solely on the perception of the receiving audience, resulting in possible arbitrary enforcement. Now, attempts to define First Amendment rights frequently present such vagueness and chilling effect issues, and we do see some of those here. The ACLU of Georgia believes that this legislation is not truly necessary in its current form, and at the very least, this committee should take a closer look at those sections that may not provide adequate notice of what is allowed as expressive activity on campuses, and therefore may chill speech. Of course, the First Amendment not only protects the expression of an idea, but also the ability of those to confront ideas that they disagree with. Thank you. I yield for any questions.
Thank you very much. I'm going to move on and ask you the same thing. I mean, if you have suggestions, I would certainly like to hear them. We've asked for that before. We've incorporated a lot of things. And so what I want to stay about or move away from is, that's always one more thing. I mean, we've gone down the list here. So I don't recall, specific objections that your organization had as we moved forward last year. In fact, I thought we had a bit of a different attitude about it. I'm not, you don't have to defend that, you know, one way or the other, but I seem to hear something a little bit different. I'm going to go back to Julian. Did you find similar places in the legislation that the gentleman just outlined?
Yes, I think Mr. Vossi did a great job of outlining a lot of the areas of concern. The last thing that I would want to direct y'all's attention to is line 83, talking about basically how extending the protections of this bill to speakers that student organizations invite. And, you know, as a student, of course, I have a vested interest in being able to speak, to have my speech free, right? Of course, obviously I'm here. I am, you know, someone who believes that political speech needs to be able to like happen on campuses, but it's extremely concerning to me that we are extending these types of very expansive and vague protections to guest speakers of organizations, which, as we've already established through various testimonies, can be student-led. So beyond the different kind of vague clauses that I think would limit counter protest in my own speech and that of my friends, line 83, I think is also particularly troubling in that it extends the right that we would give to students, to speakers they invite who we have, you know, kind of no guarantee of character or like, you know, basically like the content that they're gonna, the radical nature basically of what they might say from these student hate groups. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else that had phoned in to speak or come in to speak? Chairman Dreyer says, see your hand up. Do you have a question or a comment?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I have a comment, but I would just defer to you, Mr. Chair, on when would be the appropriate time if there's going to be debate on the motion. I'm happy to defer until that point.
Well, you know, to be clear, we're just listening to the presentation of the bill. You know, normally, Chairman, you've been around here for a minute. I think I'm very open in this committee. There, a lot of people would have said we voted on this once before and hold it up to today. I told you they changed the effective date and held the vote. You know, it would have probably been Representative Bonner would have probably liked that as well. I mean, I've tried to let people have their say on it. We're not going to take action on the bill today. In fact, I'm going to encourage each of the speakers to give us suggestions, you know, for things they'd like to see done, and we'll get those to Representative Bonner. But I don't want to continue to carry it, you know, forward again and again. Dr. Clark mentioned we've had this a couple of years. We've tried to improve it. We moved it. So I do want us to move. So when we get to that point, if you have a discussion, but we won't be entertaining a motion today.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. That's okay.
Okay. I do want to thank, we have the system office on, and I'm going to ask them to either unmute and converse with me a bit on this. Is the university system with us?
Hey, Chairman Martin, can you hear us? This is Casey and Josiah.
I can. Wherever you were on my grid here. Oh, there you are. You moved. Your box moved on my grid, so I thought you had dropped off. This is a bit disconcerting when you're doing this. So a couple of things that I want to ask of you all is, you know, are going back earlier to Alex. I would like you guys to look into. And if she is not if she doesn't object and would make herself available, I'd like for us to understand a little bit more about the situations, irregardless of HB1. If we have people, I mean, it's not free speech to trail somebody around and scream at them on the streets of Atlanta or on a college campus, and that would be comment in the chair's opinion here, and not from a legal perspective, but just from a civil and human one. So I'm going to lean on you all to go to whomever you need to at the system office and at the campus, if she would be kind enough to provide us some additional information and work on that. And then I'm going to also ask Josiah, and by the way, welcome aboard. You were new. I failed to welcome you, you know, to our committee on behalf of the members. A new attorney from that'll be working with us from the University System of Georgia. So we want to engage you all with some comments we may get from our 5 or 6 speakers today, and get back with them each individually on for answers. So with that said, did you have anything additionally you guys would like to offer this afternoon?
No, we appreciate the opportunity to be with you all and to hear the testimony as well. We'll be glad to follow up with Alex and the other student speakers on any specific instances that they brought up. So we'll be happy to follow up with them and their institutions on that and share an update with you, Chairman, for the rest of the committee. But we have nothing else to share. Thank you.
And thank you for the welcome, Chairman Martin.
Okay, I also see here, and I see Representative Jackson, I'll come right to you, but I failed to at the beginning of the meeting, and I'll always miss somebody, and I appreciate everybody that works with us on staff. But I want to introduce the committee virtually here to Miss Jennifer Wang. Jennifer is working with us over in 417 in what I loosely recall to refer to as Team Higher Ed over there with Kayla Bankhoff in our office. The office that the people of the 49th district allow me to sit in Capitol 417. So Jennifer, I don't know if you have a camera or clear to turn it on, but Jennifer Yang, there she is up there somewhere in your grid, you'll find her. She's working with us over at 417 and will be supportive of our committee this session. So when you're by and in the Capitol, please stop by and see Kayla. She's new in our office, not new since special session for the folks that were around then, but new since last session, and Jennifer was there. So we want to continue to work on this. All right, Representative Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you know, this is my first meeting with you. I've received the document on the bill, and in listening to our young people that have spoken today, it seems like there are some things that may need to be tweeted in this document. I've worked on a college campus for 30 years, and I know how young people protest. And I've always been in the interest of getting the information from the students. As you said earlier, this bill has been on the table for a number of years, but it is very new to me, and I do have my concerns. If I had to say something right now, I do think that it needs to be tweaked. And I wanted to know, when you put this bill together, did you have any students or any members from the administration of some of our universities to be involved in this? Because they really know what is going on and they can offer a lot of information. I'm not saying that the entire bill needs to be changed, but I do think that there are some things that we have to do to address the needs of what the students are asking for. So my question is, did we have administration representatives from the universities in helping to prepare this bill? And did we have any student involvement in helping to get their ideas as well?
Yeah, yes, ma'am. Well, as you know, even though you're new to the House, any representative, a single one or multiple people can drop legislation of their own creation, without the input of anyone else. I'm not saying that's what happened in this case, but that can happen. I'll tell you in this case that Representative Bonner brought a piece of legislation here. I believe a similar piece was dropped in the Senate. Extensive work has been done on this legislation to remove several things were problematic to some of our members and problematic to me in consultation with the representative. He was very good to work with people that were advocates for the bill and with the university system and the technical college system of Georgia. So it's not the chair's wish here to develop legislation that'll affect tens of thousands of folks on college campuses today and then the ones in the future, in a vacuum. That's why I would like to encourage our speakers today and to communicate with me, with us, so that we can focus on the issues they bring up. And if there are improvements to be made in the bill, we'll make them. We're going to get to we're going to do that and move forward. Whether the bill passes or the bill doesn't pass is up to the will of the committee. But I'm going to ask everyone to bring those to us sooner than later, their suggestions. Yeah. And that's the reason, Representative Jackson, you and we had another member, and I think Representative Moore was our another new member for us this session that may have not been here for the bill. So y'all are two of the reasons, and the rest of the committee is the other one that we'll take a minute to look at this and look at it twice. So
thank you. Well, can I say one final thing? I want to commend you, though, by having this public hearing in order to hear what our others have to say before it comes to a final vote. I think that is very something very wise to do, particularly when you're being inclusive of the ideas that I've heard here today and what they are concerned about. And not only that, I think it makes for a better chance of pass when you can say what you have done and you have opened it up to our young people and others to say something. So I do commend you on that.
Thank you very much. I see our hand up over there, our Secretary of the Committee, Representative Patty Bentley.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me well?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry that I logged on a little late, so I kind of missed some of the presentation. What's next after today? Because we've heard this bill before on several occasions. So what are we doing after today?
Well, I hope we're hearing, getting some, written feedback and some information from our the folks that pointed out some things. So we'll get that. I'll pass that along to the committee. I'll talk to the author of the bill, and when he's ready, having had a chance to look at, and we've had a chance to respond to that, it'll come back to the committee for additional action, at the pleasure of the committee.
Yes, sir. I just want to make sure I did not miss anything. Thank you.
Yes. Chairman Carpenter. Chairman Casey Carpenter.
Thank you very much there, Chairman Martin. I just wanted to thank Bonner for bringing this bill and being so diligent on this bill. He's brought it a few years, and, I'm of the mindset that if you allow everyone free speech, then, democracy flourishes. But when we start to pick and choose who we allow to speak and what they say, so long as no one's harmed, I think that's important for our college campuses. And I think, sometimes we may not like what somebody's saying, but that doesn't mean that they don't have the right to say it. So I just want to commend Bonner for his diligence, because he's been working on this thing forever. And I really think he's got his dotted his I's and crossed his T's, if you will, on this legislation. And I look forward to being able to vote on it.
Okay, we'll do that. I don't see anything else. I see Secretary Bentley and Carpenter's hands still up, but I think that's just because y'all hadn't cleared them, or I don't see anything further there. So Representative Bonner, I'll give you the last word before we close off here. With the not writing checks you have to cash per se, but I do think it's important to take the information that we heard today, the individuals to send us something. It doesn't have to be not a form over function to you all. You're not sending a paper in to college, but you need to capture your ideas of lines on paper with the bill of what your suggestions would be, and get that to our office so I can share it with the committee with your permission, and share it with the author, and ask Josh to take a look at it. He might not be all of that, in which case he'll bring the bill in the current format or a different format or someplace in between. But he deserves the opportunity to see something in writing and to work with that. So with that, Representative Bonner, I'm going to let you have the last word, and we'll give people some of their time back.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And again, thank you to you and the committee for the hearing today. I will certainly do my best to get with those new members and walk through this legislation and kind of give you the history and then some of the thought process behind what's been done. I think we've certainly displayed a willingness to work with not only the committee, but with all of those interested parties in finding a bill that does strike that balance. And again, as Representative Carpenter Carpenter said, the free speech is something that, unfortunately, I wish we could just, set the Constitution down on the desk and say, that's it. That's what we're going to abide by, and not have to have all these additional rules and regulations and laws and codes. But unfortunately, that's not the dynamic that we're in. We continually have to pass legislation to reinforce those constitutional rights that are granted to us. So this is along that vein. I'd cited the Supreme Court case, and there are others that I will certainly provide to the committee. I will say I appreciate the students that provided testimony. The things that they brought up, I think, are of grave concern. And I'm hoping that the university system folks that are online will take that into account and investigate each and every instance where our students are feeling endangered. I think that's something that we need to take a look at. House Bill 1 in no way is meant to put any student or any individual on our college campuses in danger. And that is not the intent of the bill. And I don't believe that is what it says or what it will do. So again, I look forward to working with all the members of the committee to get to that point where we can say that we are truly defending those rights that are granted to us by the Constitution. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Well, thank you, everyone. I appreciate everyone doing this. I hope you enjoy the flexibility. I know there were a lot of things moving around on Capitol Hill this afternoon, so I felt like doing this virtually, since we weren't taking a vote, would give everybody the opportunity to do that. So when we convene again, we'll probably be in a hybrid format. I do encourage you, if we're on the Hill and everybody's in good shape, to try to attend the meeting in person. If we're looking to take action, that just makes the debate easier to understand, and I think it just fosters a better discussion on the bill. But we will at this time complete the meeting today, and I'll announce to you that we do plan to meet next Wednesday. I believe the current calendar has that being a recess day on the House floor, but we will meet at 1 o'clock, and plans are right now to do that as a hybrid meeting, in person or virtual. If you're on the Hill, I encourage you to come. Last thing, again, I thank all the members for here. Actually, we have quite a few on Zoom, and I appreciate each and every one of you. And I appreciate our speakers. And again, I'm going to invite you to get us your comments to the office. I'm chuck.martin@house.ga.gov. And I think probably most of you knew that by now, but that's how you can find us. And Kayla, Jennifer, and I will make a point of getting back with you and staying in touch with you as this process moves forward. If there's nothing further, President Benton, I still see your hand up. Is that from last time, or did you have something further?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman, that was from last time. I apologize.
All right. Well, you actually got the last word then. If there's no further need on the committee's part today, thank you for the words on this. Thank you, Representative Bonner, for bringing HB1 by substitute to the committee. We'll convene again next week, and that concludes the business, and we'll adjourn without objection. I see no objection. We'll